Good evening, everyone. We're truly glad to have you back with us tonight. There's something uniquely unsettling about schools after dark. The echo of footsteps in empty halls and the secrets some universities never meant to reveal. Tonight, we bring you two chilling stories that happen on campus. Before we begin, tell me, what time is it where you are right now? Because tonight's stories, you won't want to hear them alone. You're watching Sleep Horror Stories. My name's Lisa, and I'm from small town in Nevada. This all happened about 7 years ago when I started attending a well-known performing arts university in the U.S. I'd rather not say the name, not because I'm ashamed or anything, but I don't want to tarnish the school's reputation or the theater clubs with a story this strange. So a bit of background. I come from one of those towns where not much happens. The kind of place where going to the grocery store was sometimes the highlight of your day. When I got my acceptance letter to the university's literature and arts program, my heart nearly burst out of my chest. It was the start of something huge. And yeah, it meant leaving home and living in a whole new city for a few years. The months before my first class, I spent them looking for a student apartment that was cheap but not sketchy. My dad agreed to help me with the bills, and my mom, well, she gave me one of those classic movie mom speeches. You know, all the things I had to be careful about in the big city. She was terrified her small town girl would be swallowed whole by city life. But spoiler alert, I adapted just fine. My whole family helped me move. We walked around campus, checked out my dorm, all that. I moved in a week before classes started, and honestly, it was everything I dreamed. I met tons of new people, and I was blown away by the number of clubs and activities the school offered. There were too many options, so I ended up taking the advice of the first real friend I made in class. Let's call her Samantha. She suggested we check out the theater club. I jumped at the idea. It sounded like the perfect mix: writing, performing, expressing myself creatively. And I wasn't wrong. Everyone in the club was super welcoming. There were about 20 of us, and we joined just as they were starting to prepare for a new play. Neither Samantha nor I had any idea that those late-night rehearsals, sometimes going until 9 p.m., would lead us into something deeply disturbing. One Thursday in mid-October, we were all exhausted after a long costume rehearsal. Opening night was just a few weeks away. Everyone was packing up in the dressing rooms behind the stage, down in the basement level of the theater building. We weren't in a rush because every student was responsible for their own costume, and the club's director, Mr. Green, usually stayed late to review his notes anyway. Samantha and I were chatting and moving slowly, saying goodbye to everyone as they left. But eventually, we noticed something. We were completely alone. And suddenly, that dressing room didn't feel so familiar anymore. The silence was heavy. The basement also doubled as storage, so it was filled with props, costumes, and strange shadows. Samantha and I made eye contact, both knowing it was time to get out of there. As we were finishing up, I heard something, a wooden thud off in the distance. I looked toward the door, but Samantha didn't react, so I told myself I imagined it. We finished folding our costumes and left the dressing room. The hallway outside was dimly lit by old, flickering bulbs. At the end of the hall, behind two large doors, was the storage room for props. We walked past door after door, most of them closed, not knowing what was inside. We got to the storage room, put away our costumes, and tried to keep the conversation going just to break the tension. But something felt wrong. Samantha admitted she almost bolted the second we walked in. I turned off the light behind us, and we started walking back toward the stairs. That's what happened. Samantha stopped dead in her tracks. I almost bumped into her and asked what was wrong, but I didn't need her to answer. Down the hall, One of the doors was now open, and in the middle of the hallway was a harlequin puppet, about 3 feet tall, its strings tangled and its control rods lying beside it. Samantha was frozen. I was freaked out, but still able to move. I called out for Mr. Green, assuming he must be nearby. But the second I tried to take a step toward the puppet, Samantha grabbed my wrist. Hard. She was shaking. She whispered, almost choking on the words, "That's not Mr. Green." I kept staring down the hall. And then I saw it. A pale hand, feminine, with long red nails, crawled out from the dark floor of that room. It grabbed the puppet by the leg and pulled it slowly back inside. At that point, I stopped thinking. I just acted. I grabbed Samantha's hand and ran. She kept her eyes shut tight. I kept mine locked on the hallway corner leading to the stairs. We passed that open door in what felt like an eternity. But it was maybe 4 seconds. Out of pure instinct, I glanced sideways. And there she was. A woman, deathly pale, with a grotesque grin and stark white hair, watching us from the doorway. I don't know how I didn't collapse from fear. We hit the stairs and climbed as fast as we could. I kept expecting something to grab my ankle and pull me down, but nothing did. Instead, behind us, we heard the door slam shut. That was it. We screamed, loud. Mr. Green ran out to help us. He swore he was the only one there. He tried to calm us down, but we were both in full panic mode, babbling nonsense. He went to check the basement. Of course, he found nothing. Still, he was kind enough to call us an Uber and made us promise to come back the next day for rehearsal. Despite what we saw, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day, I convinced Samantha to come with me early. When we told Mr. Green everything, I expected him to give us some sort of rational explanation. But his face showed the same fear and confusion we felt. He asked, seriously, if it was a prank. Samantha's glare made it clear it wasn't. That's when she told me what she saw. While I was switching off the light, she saw the tall woman, dressed all in black, manipulating the harlequin puppet with expert control. They locked eyes, and the woman vanished into the room. When Samantha mentioned the puppet, Mr. Green's face dropped. He took us downstairs. We followed him. That room? It was a prop storage area, filled with puppets and marionettes. And there, in a dusty corner, was the puppet. So clothes, bright paint, smiling face. Mr. Green picked it up by the rods. No doubt about it. That was the same harlequin. He asked us not to tell anyone. He didn't want to scare the other students. We agreed. Yet for the 5 years I spent in that theater club, I never saw anything like that again. Neither did Samantha. But we also never stayed in that basement alone again. Thanks for listening. Good evening. You can call me John Carter. I'm a math professor at a university in the southern United States. For reasons I'm sure you'll understand, I prefer not to mention the name of the school. In academia, people tend to scoff at anything remotely supernatural. And I don't want my reputation questioned. Still, what happened to me was very real. And to this day, I can't explain it with logic. It was late January of last year. I was in my office grading the first batch of exams for my sophomore students. It was about 9 p.m. My office is fully equipped with everything I need: whiteboard, bookshelves, file cabinets, and a desk I've had for years. Over time, I've made the space my own. It's comfortable. My wife knows I prefer to stay late and finish everything, so I can go home with a clear mind. Our offices are in a small wing attached to the main classroom building. They're connected by a wide corridor that only really has 2 bathrooms and a janitor's closet. About 10 minutes in, I was listening to a podcast when someone knocked on my door. I stood up. It was a colleague, a fellow engineer and professor. Let's call her Dr. Sullivan. She's about 10 years older than me, very professional, very serious. Students usually fear her, and not without reason. She stopped by to say goodbye and asked if I was leaving soon. I told her no, I had about 10 exams left, but I could walk her to her car if she wanted. She declined, said she'd asked the night guard, James, to escort her. I watched her walk down the hall, then closed the door and got back to work. Maybe 5 minutes passed. Another knock. Now my door is solid wood. No window, with a basic lock from the inside. Behind me is a small window facing the parking lot, which I always keep locked. Thinking it was Dr. Sullivan again, maybe she couldn't find James, I went to open it. But when I stepped into the hall, no one. I looked left, right? Nothing but office doors and silence. I wasn't superstitious. I didn't believe in ghosts. But something felt off. There was a coldness in the air that didn't feel natural. It crawled up my arm, just holding the doorknob. I shut the door and locked it. Just to be sure, I peeked out the window. Her car was gone. Only mine and 2 others remained, probably belonging to law faculty down the hall. Then another knock. But this one was soft. Timid. The kind of knock you hear from a nervous student who doesn't want to bother you. So this time, I figure it must be a student from the library, maybe looking for help with a problem. I opened the door. Again, nothing. No footsteps, no laughter, not even a whisper. The hallway was dead silent. I stepped out again, looked toward the restrooms. Empty. I even called out. Hello, you can come in if you need help. No answer. I waited. Nothing. That's when a third knock hit. Louder this time. I spun around just in time to see my own office door slam shut. Hard. It shook the frame. There was no way wind could have done that. Someone had to be inside. I rushed to the door and tried to open it. But it was locked, from the inside. Panicking, I dug for my keys. My hands were trembling as I tried to fit the key into the lock. From inside, I could hear knocking, but now it was coming from within my office. Someone, or something, was knocking from inside. I finally got the door open and flung it wide, ready to catch whoever was messing with me. But the room was empty. Totally empty. The lights were on. The air was heavier than before. I checked every corner, every file cabinet, even the drawers under my desk. No one. The window was still locked from the inside. Whatever had closed the door, it wasn't human. I grabbed the rest of the exams, shoved everything into my bag, and ran out of that building. For weeks, I avoided staying late. Even when I returned, my office never felt the same. That space, once cozy and familiar, felt cold and alien. Thankfully, I have a supportive wife. She listened to everything and didn't laugh. She said it was probably a wandering spirit trying to reach out. She even offered to FaceTime with me while I worked at night, so I wouldn't feel so alone. It actually helped. Over time, I grew comfortable again. We turned the late night calls into a ritual. And whatever that was, it never came back. I still teach there today, but I'll never forget that night. No logical explanation fits. If you have one, I'm all ears. Thanks for listening.